It is just a huge honor for me today to be podcast interviewing Dr. Barry J. Glaser, DMD, who received his DMD degree from the University of Pennsylvania School of Dental Medicine and earned his Certificate of Advanced Graduate Studies in Orthodontics from Boston University. He served as Associate Director of Orthodontics at Montefiore Medical Center in New York City from 92 to 95. He's maintained a private orthodontic practice in Cortlandt Manor, New York since 94. Dr. Glaser was an early adopter of both Invisalign Teen as well as an iTero digital scanner and has extensive experience treating children, teens, and adults of all malocclusions with Invisalign clear aligners. He is the principal investigator for the North American clinical trial for Invisalign treatment with mandibular advancement. He is a frequent speaker for Align technology and dental monitoring, providing insight on clinical treatment with clear aligners and the psychology of compliance and how AI enhances the patient experience. He's the author of the best-selling book, The Insider's Guide to Invisalign Treatment, published in 2017 and available worldwide. Dr. Glaser's innovative website, alignerinsider.com, which is why I brought him on the show, is virtual class master for doctors to learn more about excellence in aligner orthodontics, and his 13-week online mini residency is available at clearinghouse.com. The Aligner Insider podcast is available on all podcast platforms. He is in high demand as a speaker for Align technology, and the bottom line was this. I had Joe Hogan, the CEO of Align Technology, who I always watch on Mad Money, and what's that guy's name on Mad Money? Kramer. I love Kramer, another bald, crazy man. Oh my gosh, and I got him on the show, and I thought, who the hell could follow Joe Hogan on dentistry? He had 10,000 views on Dentistry Uncensored. I said, who could follow him but the man, Barry Glaser? And seriously, dude, seriously, you're the only one that could have followed that guy. And thanks for coming on the show. How are you doing?
Mom, are you sitting behind him there? Are you hear my mom back there? She'd be very happy to hear all those nice things that you said about me. I am great. I thought what you were going to say was that, the only person that could follow Joe Hogan was not available. So, you had to find me. That would probably be more appropriate.
And I hope they're listening to this on iTunes, because if you saw both of our bald heads at the same time, your website might, if you have a porn filter on it, it'll probably just block the whole YouTube video as a porn. But my God, these are such trying times, and you are up there in New York, and in March that was ground zero. I mean, your entire city was just it was under lockdown, and so I know that we're gonna get to aligners and all that stuff, but did you ever think in your wildest dreams you'd be an orthodontist in New York during a pandemic, and how did you survive the lockdown?
So to answer the first question, no. You watch these movies like Contagion. Have you seen that movie?
Yeah.
And you think, it's a great movie, but it's never going to happen. I mean, and it just happened so quickly here. I mean, I was traveling. In fact, I was in your neck of the woods. I was in Phoenix the first weekend of March, and there was a girl sitting next to me on the plane, and she came on with gloves and a mask, and we were all kind of like laughing, and we thought it was so cute. And that was probably like March 5th. And then, March 13th, I closed my office down. So it just happened so quickly. And there was so much, I think, to try to, to wrap your head around. So it was a trying experience. I mean, thankfully, my family's okay. And, my patients are okay and my staff, but it was really,
to put this in perspective,
crazy.
You're not in New York City. You're like, what, an hour up the Hudson River?
Yeah, I'm in Westchester County, so exactly 1 hour north. So we're in the country up here.
And I feel sorry for international people, because international people, whenever you go international, they don't even know what New York City is. They say, well, what is New York City? Because if you ask someone, do you live in New York City? They say, no, I live in Manhattan. No, I live in Brooklyn. No, I live in Queens. No, I live in Bronx. Does anybody actually live in New York City, or does it not even exist? How would you explain that to someone from India?
Well, we first of all, we start by saying there are trees in New York. Even in the Bronx, where I was born, there's trees. But to answer your question, New York has changed so much. The real estate market in the suburbs, like where I am, and even further north, is on fire. because there are so many people that are now looking to get out of the city and, out of that density. So, and then commercial real estate too in New York. I mean, I don't think anybody knows what's going to happen. A good friend of mine's a CPA. He works in the Empire State Building, and I think he comes in sometimes and there's like 10 people in the whole building. So I think going forward, nobody really knows how this is all going to shake out. So it's been.
Well, I think we got some good precedents how it'll shake out, because San Francisco, when I started lecturing, the first time I lectured in Lake Tahoe, it was nothing. You could buy a $100,000 house on the lake, and then something happened in San Francisco, and everybody kind of wanted to get out of town. And they all discovered, shit, Tahoe's only 3 hours up the road, and the next thing you know, everything is $1 million. I'm seeing that completely right now in Phoenix. You go 1 hour up north, and you get up a mile high, and the temperature drops 30 degrees. Houses have doubled. The one that I was going to buy, and I thought, a little too high. I finally made the call. The price has doubled.
Really?
And so
this is like in Flagstaff in that area?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Flag, Globe, all that stuff. And so these people are going to leave downtown, the Empire State Building. They're going to find out, God, it's just nicer out in the woods without all this crowded stuff. The kids can go out and play. And this is going to be a lifelong, because the parents are going to buy that house. The grandkids are going to visit grandma, so they're going to want to live up there. And this is a long-term change that people saying, you don't have to get in an airplane and fly 4 hours to go on vacation. Why don't we just drive an hour out of the city? And now you're San Fran to Lake Tahoe. Now you're Phoenix to Flagstaff. Now you're Manhattan to the end of the Hudson River.
That's right. It's kind of funny, because when I was, I grew up in New York City, and, we used to go on a vacation. So we, get in the car and go to Niagara Falls or go to upstate New York. And that was before people were getting on jets. And you think, like, for example, like the Catskills, which, used to be a big entertainment center and now has fallen on hard times, but maybe you start to see some resurgence of that, and history repeats itself, I guess, right?
I saw the biggest whale on the beach in New Jersey. I couldn't believe it, but it turned out it wasn't even whale after all. It was Governor Christie. Bad joke. So the other thing I want to talk to you about the pandemic is two things. So this is all deja vu for me, because I graduated from high school in 80. That's when HIV broke out in 79. And I can remember when the government started telling dentists they had to wear masks. There were stand-up dentists in Kansas that literally would grab a hold of their 12-gauge shotgun and say, "Over my dead body." And that was for gloves, and they wouldn't even want to sit down. And one of them, he was so adorable. His name was Dr. Peltzer. He thought only the lazy dentists sit down. All the dentists he knew that stood up, them were the hard-working dentists, but those lazy young kids sitting in their chair. But what I liked about it, what I want to know is a lot of that HIV stuff was insanely didn't make sense. Like, they came into Arizona and told us we couldn't wear shorts anymore. It's 116 degrees outside for 6 months, and I have all these staff in white shorts and white tennis shoes and little Today's Dental shirts, and they're like, well, you can't wear that anymore. And they're like, well, how do you catch AIDS? By wearing shorts. And it was completely illogical. But there were a lot of permanent changes. We went to gloves, we went to masks, we got rid of cuspidors, we got bottled water, we did all these things. And I look at all the things they're doing now, and I'm wondering what is just panicking, but what will still be here 10 years from now? What did you as an orthodontist, specifically, it sounds like where you live in New York, Wall Street thinks you're going to be doing it all telehealth, televideo, video conferencing. What do you think? What did you have to do that you weren't prepared for after HIV and AIDS that went on to kill 36 million people? What did AIDS not prepare you for on this? And what are you doing now that you think you'll still be doing 10, 20 years from now during the next Contagion Part 2 movie, Return of the Viruses?
Hopefully I'll get to, play Matt Damon's part next time. But, it's a really good observation. And the truth is that, for a long time, because I graduated in high school in 1982 and 1980 also. And I remember my first year at Penn Dental, which was 84. That was the first year that gloves were mandatory. And, all the faculty, you probably had the same thing. There was a big outcry, and the dean said, neurosurgeons wear gloves, you can wear gloves too. And that kind of was the end of the complaints. But we've seen all of these changes. And there's a great movie, I'm sure you've seen Moneyball. the great Billy Bean. And there's a great quote that I use all the time, and that is, you have to adapt or die. And I think it just goes to show, maybe our generation, we're so used to it. You remember too, they made us all get the Heptavax vaccine, which was, this brand new recombinant vaccine.
And it was like $200.
We've been through it already,
remember
right?
How much you had to pay for that?
I was taking out the loans anyway. I just kept signing the notes.
Like, are you kidding me? A flu shot's $200, but yeah, it was incredible.
So maybe this has, our generation has learned to be agile, and we've learned to adapt. And I think that's kind of the way we're handling in our practice. So initially, we didn't have to do an awful lot because we're using universal precautions. We're doing all the things that we're supposed to do. I'm the guy who tries to follow things by the letter anyway. But certainly the physical plan changes, and whether you need them or not, the HEPA filters and all that kind of stuff, we did that, and the barriers. And I had about 10 weeks. So Governor Cuomo allowed us to open again right at the beginning of June. So I had by the middle of March till June to make all the physical plan changes, to make all the changes culturally to my staff. And again, my staff is used to this. They've been trained from the beginning to use universal precautions, and we're trying to do it the right way. So it wasn't really all that difficult, especially once you get, and I'm sure you're the same way, Howard, once you get into that mindset that you think that, change isn't necessarily a bad thing and that you shouldn't be afraid of. And I've tried to indoctrinate that to my staff too. So we still, to this day, so now where are we now? September 29th, we're still asking the screening questions. We still want to keep social distancing in the waiting room. We try to have the parents stay out in the car, and people are still wearing masks. And it's honestly, it's actually been better than I imagined, because back in March, it just seemed like a nightmare, but you forge ahead and you make it work. So we're trying to make sure that we're doing it the right way and not getting ourselves sick or staff or getting any of our patients sick. But you're right. I mean, how much different was this from what we were doing before, which was, pretty much the same thing.
Yeah. We had to close down for 2 months from in Arizona. We had to close down from St. Patrick's Day, which is perfect timing because you're hungover the next day anyway, and then you got to open up on Cinco de Mayo, which was horrible because then you had to show up to work hungover. And but 2 months, 2 months. We got a donut. I mean that kills the year profitability when you're closed for 2 months. Have you reached back to pre-pandemic levels, or are you only halfway back? Where are you at pre-pandemic to now?
Well, thankfully there was some federal funds and assistance. I got a PPP loan. I was able to keep my employees on the payroll, which certainly helped with cash flow. No, we're not back. We did have a great June and July, probably the best June and July ever, just simply because of the backlog. And I was quite honestly delighted that people were still interested to come in and get their treatment started. But I just was looking at my end of quarter numbers, and we're still not anywhere. We're about 25% down. From a production standpoint from what we were last year. And, I don't think we're going to recover that. I think, wait till next year. Wait till next year, like the Mets. Well, it is what it is. What are you going to do?
Some people, I don't really understand what they're thinking, but some people think it's just kind of creepy to be marketing now after a pandemic. I mean, because they're thinking, well, you probably should just be home and self-isolating and trying to get, grandma to come in for a 6-month cleaning, or you trying to get kids in, but the schools are opening up. And this was a long-winded way to answer this. When you go back to March and April, they were saying, well, the Spanish influenza came on strong in the spring and died out in the summer. And if it would have ended at the end of the summer, we wouldn't even be talking about it. Then it came back in the fall with a vengeance. Well, then halfway through the summer, all the epidemiologists I know at ASU, they were saying, well, that was an influenza pandemic, and this is a coronavirus, and we've never seen one before. And then by July and August, every epidemiologist I know from ASU is saying, no, it doesn't have that wave function. They have all this math that's not a wave. And now, sure enough, it's going into the fall. Europe, they're saying everybody's reaching record numbers. But you got two variables. You got schools opening back up, and you have a novel virus, so you don't know if it's strong in the spring, dies out in the summer, comes back in the fall, which correlates not so much to temperature but humidity in the air. So what do you think? Do you think we're going to have a fall uptick? Do you think this thing's going to come back? And if so, do you think it's because it's cyclic like influenza, or do you think it's the schools opening? Because you're an ortho, probably I'm guessing 80% of your clients are kids and 20% are adults.
It's about 60% kids and 40% adults. We have more adults than you'd think.
And are you 20% clear aligner, 80% fixed?
I am 80% clear aligner.
Okay, I just want to tell you kids out there that's, I mean, you know, he's an outlier. Not only does he look like Mr. Clean, where's your gold earring? I love that picture of you with the, oh, there, yeah, I like the bigger.
Hey, yeah, I got the gold earring right there.
I like the bigger, obnoxious Mr. Clean one on you. That's a hot picture. But kids, I'm telling you, they're all 80% fixed and 20% aligner. So here you have a 60 or 80% aligner,
80% clear aligner,
80% clear aligner. So he should have 20% clear aligner, and he's 60% clear aligner. Did you say 60 or 80?
All right, now you got me confused. So of all my patients, so I have about 60% of my patients are teens, 40% of my patients are adults, but all together, if you lump all those together, 80% of all my patients are in Invisalign.
You're a maverick, man, and I'm telling you, that's why the only guy I could think of to follow Joe Hogan was you.
Well, you know, grass doesn't grow on a busy street, so that I just wanted to get that out of the way. But here's the thing.
So the question was for marketing. Like I know you've talked about orthomarketing.com before. Do you feel kind of like, wow, I shouldn't be trying to get the kids to come back to school in my ortho practice during a pandemic? Just stay home and we'll do ortho next year. I told my 6 grandkids, I mean, obviously their moms are going to do whatever the hell they want to do, but I told all my daughter-in-laws that I wouldn't be sending my kid back to school right now. I mean, I just wouldn't. And you know, take it for what it is. I just wouldn't. Not to mention Grandpa's having a blast FaceTiming, doing their math and physics. And, oh, my God, I love it. But anyway, go on.
No, so I think I've evolved. I mean, I think in the dark days of, March and April, I just couldn't see it. I mean, I didn't think that the NBA would ever come back, or the NFL or MLB. I just thought, I mean, I don't know if I'm pessimistic enough, but I just couldn't see it happening. But the interesting thing is that we've had quite a bit of demand, and I have had more than one adult. In fact, that adult patient just came in today. She said, and she's a rarity. She actually has braces. It's probably the first adult that I put braces on in a couple of years. And she said, there's no better time to get braces than when you have to wear a mask anyway. And I find that I think there's a couple of dynamics, at least in orthodontics, that have led to, which is a really good demand. Number one, I think that maybe people who haven't lost their jobs. So the people that are fortunate enough to be working remotely, which is what most of New Yorkers are doing, they actually have a little bit more money in their pocket than they used to, because they probably didn't take the vacation. They're probably not going out to eat like they used to, and they probably have more control over their expenses than they have in a long time. And we have people that come in and say, we've got some extra cash and we wanted to do our teeth and we want to get going. So I've seen that economic pattern happen a lot. I honestly think when it came to like June and the weather gets really nice in New York, I think people they were happy to go to the orthodontist because they were just going nuts at home. And I think people just wanted to get out. We did a good job, I think, educating our patients and educating the community to what we were doing to keep them safe. So I think that helped. I mean, not that you want to scare people, but I think people want to know that we put HEPA filters into the HVAC system and electrostatic filters, and that, we have the sneeze guards, and the whole thing. I don't have to go through the whole list of things. I mean, I never wore scrubs before. So I think that people felt comfortable enough. I've been in this practice since 1994, so I think people were comfortable enough with what we were doing in the office that it kind of drove this demand, and I think they were just antsy to get out of the house. But whatever it is, we had a record case starts for both June and July, so go figure. So but I mean, back in March, I thought, my practice is going to go down the tubes. I just couldn't see people wanting to come in. But for the most part, we've had people that have been very compliant. Again, they wear their masks. Now, getting back to the whole thing in the fall. So, I'm not an epidemiologist, so, who knows what's going to happen in the fall. But as far as I'm concerned, this is just my own anecdotal opinion. I think that I mean, human behavior to me is so fascinating. And, you know, especially if you take like an East Coast, a Northeast and a Southwest perspective, because I know out in your neck of the woods that there are some people that feel like wearing a mask is a sign of weakness. And, you know, we don't have to get into the politics of it, but I know that's a mindset. And I mean, I find human behavior fascinating, because you think about it and you're like, is it really that big a deal to wear a mask? I mean, forget about civil liberties. I mean, and all this, you know, the Constitution. I mean, put a mask on, for God's sakes. I mean, it's not I don't think it's such a big deal. But you see, especially the kids, you know, the college kids that are just, you know, they don't care. And you see there's a percentage of the population that just have made this into an issue that they just don't want to be told what to do. Just like people, you know, there's like in your state, people don't, I ride a motorcycle. I would never get on that motorcycle without a helmet, but in Arizona, that's your choice. And people feel, and I understand that people want to have that choice, but I mean, who wouldn't want to protect their coconut? I mean, personally, maybe I'm just a New York liberal, but I just don't get it. I mean, it doesn't seem like such a big deal to put a helmet on your head or put a mask on your face. I mean, but maybe that's just me, Howard. I mean, you're out in Phoenix. You see a different mindset out there.
That was what you said about this is a great time to get in Invisalign, because personal savings has hit a historic 33%, and as spending's declined 13%. Like, I mean, I went out to eat at a restaurant every night. Hell, just the tip was, you know, I mean, was crazy. And we were talking about earlier about getting a place up north. I mean, on the weekends, we're going up north. We're not flying somewhere. There's almost nothing to spend your money on. Hell, even if you go to the store, they don't have hardly any toilet paper or Clorox bleach, or it's hard to spend money. So if someone really wanted to get braces or Invisalign or get that implants done, there's no better time.
Yeah, that's what we've seen. And I don't know, but I mean, you're a lot smarter economic mind than I am, but I would have never predicted that. But it has helped keep us afloat. I mean, again, we're never going to make up that 10 weeks that we were closed, but it certainly helped us sustain the practice. I haven't fired anybody. You know, we're making payroll. So, you know, there's still a lot to be grateful for. You know, I have
now I want to talk about something completely different. The other reason I'm bringing the show, and you got a friend out here who can vouch for that, Gary Brigham, here in Scottsdale. In fact, the editor of Dental Town, Dan the Man, is out here too. But the bottom line is, if an orthodontist helped a general dentist, you'd be blackballed from your tribe. I mean, in the 30 years that Dental Town, we put online CE. Well, we every orthodontist that we asked to put on online CE, there's only two. There's Harry Green in Phoenix, who's a board-certified orthodontist out of St. Louis, retired out here, and he does tip edge. And there was another one, Richard Litt. He was the chairman of the ortho department, University of California, San Francisco. Then he went out to Detroit, and he just says that, you know, he's blackballed. He can't even get published in any ortho. I mean, you go to St. Louis, and you walk in the AAO building, and they're all happy and smiling, and then they find out you're not an orthodontist. It's like, get out of here. I'm dead serious. I mean, it's like, and that's probably why the orthodontists, that association has 95% of the orthodontists are members. I mean, the ADA's got 65%. The American Medical Association doesn't even have 25%. And the AAO in St. Louis has taught me one thing, that you want to keep everybody as members. You're gonna be Jimmy Hoffa, and it's just you, and you won't even talk to endodontists. I mean, those guys wouldn't even listen to a pediatric dentist. I mean, they're just militant. You know, they make a circle, they turn inward, and it works, man. They got 95% membership. But when you're doing this online stuff, is this only for orthodontists, or would you let a low-life scum bucket dirtbag general dentist look at it too?
Well, it's quite a question.
Well, so, is it too much channel conflict for you? I mean, I don't want you to come on my show and destroy your business. No, reputation.
Everything's fair game. So, but I certainly don't feel that way about GPs. But so let's talk about the course. So this Insider's Guide to the Advanced Clear Aligner Treatment, clearalignercourse.com. This particular course is for orthodontists only. It's an advanced level course, just like in school. You've got certain prerequisites. This one happens to be starts at a level that you need to have an orthodontic certificate. Now getting back to the whole GP thing, I'm glad you brought it up. Things have changed. Go ahead. You have a question before we go on?
No, I said you're really glad I brought that up.
I am glad you brought it up because I think that I don't think there's ever been a bigger gulf and rift between GPs and orthodontists than there is right now. And
there's never been a bigger rift than right now?
No, I don't think it's ever been bigger. And I think that's sad. There was a time where I did provide, look, when I got out of school, I learned that you were supposed to collaborate with your referring dentist, and collaboration meant a lot of things, but it was always about what was supposed to be in the best interest of the patient. And I was the guy back in 1994, before Invisalign. There was one or two GPs in the area that would occasionally do an ortho case, and I was the guy that they could come to for advice. Now, part of that advice would be I would tell them if I thought there was a case that they shouldn't touch with a 10-foot pole. And I felt like we developed a relationship where they trusted me, that it wasn't self-serving, that I wasn't telling them they had no business to do ortho because they were taking money out of my pocket. And I felt that we always had to keep the patient's best interest in heart. And there were a couple of guys who knew what they were doing when it came to, let's say, like molar uprighting or some minor tooth movement. And I was perfectly fine with that. But they also were referring me, the full ortho cases, which quite frankly, I still think are, I'm a specialist for a reason. Would you go to your general physician for knee surgery? We become a very specialized society. And I think that it's important for GPs to have developed relationships with the specialists, whether it's the endodontist, the periodontist, or the orthodontist. But what's happened over time, I have very few referrals from GPs anymore because they're all doing the cases themselves. And at some point, I think that there are cases to treat, a minor tooth movement case. You have a case, you want to close a diastema, and maybe you want to set it up for veneers. I think those cases can be perfectly handled by GPs. But skeletal class 3s and skeletal class 2s and deep bites, quite frankly, I have more experience and more training. And I think that probably on a routine basis, I think I'm more equipped to handle those cases. And I have a question for you, because, listen, GPs are licensed and trained to do orthodontics. It's not a crime for a general practitioner to provide orthodontic treatment. Agreed?
Right.
But now the interesting part comes that, what's to say, should I offer whitening in my office? Should I I'm a dentist. Should I offer cosmetic procedures? Should I be doing veneers? I think if the gloves are off, and I feel that way, I think it's very adversarial now between the orthodontists and the GPs, but if the gloves are off and GPs feel like, I've heard more than one GP orthodontic educator claim that ortho belongs to the GPs. But if that's going to be the attitude, if it's going to be adversarial, then, maybe the orthodontists need to do more whitening and do more cosmetic procedures. I don't know. But that's where we are. We're in a conflict, and it used to not be that way. It used to be a collaboration. So if I could give advice to a recent graduate of dental school who's out in practice, my advice would be develop good relationships with your specialists. The specialists that you trust their advice, because we're here to help the patients. And I think that would be my best advice. But having said that, at this particular point, I think you're right. If I did like an orthodontic course for GPs, I certainly wouldn't be looked upon well by my specialty. And, at some point, Howard,
Well,
if I ran one in my local area, and this isn't, if I ran a course in my local area and then it affects my bottom line, that's a tough one. That's a tough road to go down.
So your new curriculum that you've come up with, that is on alignerinsider.com.
So there's two things. Okay. So alignerinsider.com has been around for a while. And in fact, when the pandemic came around, that became free. That used to be like the Netflix of orthodontic education. Doctors would pay a subscription for that, and then they would get access to a library. I've got hundreds of case presentations, marketing. That's got basically everything for an aligner practice, where basically you paid a fee monthly fee, and then you had access to this entire masterclass educational video library. So the pandemic hit, and I just felt that I just didn't have the heart to charge, so I decided to provide that at no charge, and it continues to be at no charge. So of the members of that group, still probably 95% are orthodontists. We have some GPs on there. I mean, I don't know, who's a GP, who's an orthodontist, but that's alignerinsider.com. The second platform is the Clear Aligner course, and that's this 13-week mini residency that's brand new that I'm running with Dr. Brigham, and that is for orthodontists only. So there's two platforms out there.
And he's my neighbor.
Gary's a great guy.
Yeah, he's out here in the backyard. So clearalignercourse.com is for orthodontists only.
Correct.
And it's 13 courses long.
So basically, it lives on a Facebook group. So we have a private Facebook group. Every week, 2 modules are released. They're pre-recorded, so doctors can watch them on demand, online, whenever they want. So they're always released on a Sunday and a Wednesday, but it's not like it's a webinar. So you want to log in on a Monday and watch the module, you can. And every week is devoted to a different topic. We happen to be on teledentistry this week, which is something we could talk about. So doctors go on and they watch those modules.
You ought, if you already got all this content, and thank you for all your time on OrthoTown. I mean, my God, thank you so much. I mean, you've been on OrthoTown, my gosh, since 2008, have almost 200 posts. If you put one of those as a online CE course on OrthoTown, because OrthoTown, you can only go if you're an orthodontist, but I think that would be a huge marketing thing if you did a for some reason, dentists, they still want their AGD, they still want their CE credit, and if you put the first hour on orthotown.com, I think it'd be amazing free marketing.
Well, that's something we can talk about. In fact, one of the things that I can offer at this point is CE credit. I've got a couple of things in the pipeline. Obviously,
we can do all the CE credit for you.
Yeah, but I definitely would like to talk about that. So it's a 13-week course. It's all online, but the nice part about it is there's mentorship too. So you watch the modules at your leisure, and then you can go onto the Facebook group and you can discuss it with other members of the course, as well as with Gary Brigham and myself. So you get that sort of follow-up as well. So it's really online and on demand, but it's really a customized kind of curriculum. And I don't think there's any kind of curriculum that's like it out there. I mean, we talk about teledentistry, we talk about how to maintain profitability, obviously all the clinical orthodontic stuff. Gary's actually, this week's module is going to be,
so is it already gone live? Is week 1 already gone?
Yeah, right. So right now we're actually in week 9, so that we have another group. So we're going to start again. Our next course will start on November 1st. So it would be too late. I think it'd just be too much material for you, let's say, to log on now. But if anybody's interested in taking it, they can go to Clear Aligner course. They can sign up, and the next course will start on November 1st.
So week 1, systematic ClinCheck review. Week 2, Invisalign first, phase 1 to Invisalign. Class 3, class 2 week 3, class 2 malocclusion. Week 4, Invisalign with MA. What's MA? Malocclusion?
Mandibular advancement. That's
mandibular advancement.
A functional appliance that's built into Invisalign.
I'm just a general dentist. Sorry about that. Week 5 is class 3 malocclusion. Week 6, deep bite, open bite. Week 7, acceleration orthodontics. Week 8, cosmetic dentistry for the orthodontist. Week 9, virtual consultation and remote treatment monitoring. Week 10, TMD and complex cases. Week 11, smile anesthetics and troubleshooting. Week 12, creating great patient experience, consultation, reach your markets. And I did enough ortho to know that you were missing the one thing I needed the most, and that was I am all for general dentists learning the basics, because you need to be cross-trained, because if 100 parents bring you in 100 kids, 112 moms are going to ask, is little Billy going to need braces when he grows up? And if you were from UMKC class 87, all I had was craniofacial growth and development and embryology, and I could tell you about
that wire bending course, right, where they made
Oh my God! So I knew nothing. So I didn't want to do Richard Litt's course because it was Detroit. So he told me, he was a great businessman. He said, well, if you get this many doctors, I think it was 12. He So you get 12 doctors to sign up. We'll take it. So it was all my alcoholic drinking friends, and it was the most fun. It was like 4 3-day weekends of drinking during the class. It was just so much fun. But anyway, but back to this deal. You have to, in dentistry, I would rather all the dentists do C average work and no one's even that good or great if everybody got an A in the diagnosis and the treatment plan. What I can't stand is people are getting an A on their dentistry and they got a D or an F on the diagnosis and treatment plan. And you just have to know. So I went through Richard Litt's course, and then I went through Harry Green's course and Jack Sheridan. Do you remember Jack Sheridan?
Sure. Yeah.
And went through Jack Sheridan's courses and did, I don't know, 100 cases or whatever. But to be able to answer all these questions, I didn't keep doing it, nor did any other general dentist do it, because, dude, if you have a crown, I can do $1,000 in an hour. I don't want to get married to you for 2 years to have 6 crowns. I'd rather have 6 individuals a day and get them all done. I didn't like the dating course. But of all your 12-week modules, I have to tell the young kids, the retention part is 1,000,000 times harder than the straightening part. You straighten out all the teeth, and then it comes to, do you want the retainer thing? And sure enough, in 2 years, 3 years, if that's not right, they're coming in, they're looking. I thought retention was the reason I wouldn't want to be an orthodontist. I think, is it safe to say that retention is harder than the original treatment plan, the original straightening?
I mean, certainly from a psychological, stress point in the office, it's very difficult because it's, again, look, everything needs maintenance. I mean, if you do periodontal treatment on a patient and they don't do what they're supposed to at home, it breaks down. So, I mean, this is just the way it works. I mean, everything in life needs maintenance. But you're cutting these patients loose at some point. You really can't see them forever, but you're cutting these patients loose some point with certain levels of responsibility. And literature shows that a good percentage of the patients ultimately stop wearing their retainers, and of that percentage, about 60% are going to have significant relapse. But look, it's not. It's funny. Like if this was a podcast and we were plastic surgeons, it's not like people go in and get a facelift and then expect it to last forever. But imagine, if you will, that you got a facelift and the doctor said, look, I want you to wear this little mask every night while you're sleeping. And if you do that, you'll never get another wrinkle and the facelift will last forever. Or, if there was a hat that I could have worn when I was 18 years old that it would prevented baldness, I think I'd be a rich guy. And that's what we have with retainers. I mean, it's the anti-aging miracle for your teeth. But at some point, as you know, with any dental procedure, I can't go home and wear them for the patient. So, I mean, it's just the way life is. I mean, everything goes towards entropy. So is it a failing of orthodontics? It turns out that 66% of adults who never had orthodontic treatment have lower incisor crowding by the time they're 40. So it's just part of being human. So maybe, Howard, part of the issue is, the way we were trained in dental school, which is that, if it breaks down 20 years from now, you're the failure. I mean, that's kind of was my dental education. It was probably yours too. But we're treating people. And so
what
we
you
need
just said
retention,
is very important for the kids to get. And there's a satisfaction equals perception of what happened minus what I expected. And I always think the orthopedic surgeons are better than all the implantologists, because they'll do a knee or a hip. It's $50,000 a knee. 2 knees, $100,000. And they tell them it'll last 5 years. Yeah. 5 years after. So then in 5 years, they're like, mine's still working, and I didn't have to have it redone until 7 or 8 years. They're happy. What does the dentist say? You get this implant here, someday you'll take it to heaven. Yeah. What the hell did you just say that for?
Yeah, and it's certainly not evidence-based dentistry. I mean, the evidence doesn't show that anything lasts forever.
So you lower their expectations, and like people come in. I see it all the time. They'll say, "Well, if I have that root canal, can I go back to work?" Absolutely, you'll be fine. What the hell did you say that for? I say, when they say, "Well, there'll be pain afterwards," I said, "At home, do you have a gun?" And they'll go, "Yeah, why?" And I said, "Well, when this anesthesia wears off, you're gonna need that pistol, okay? You're gonna need to shoot yourself right in the head. This thing, of hell no, you're not going to be able to go back to work. You'll be lucky if you get it. And then they come back 3 days later and say, Howard, you won't even believe this. I was fine. I actually went back to work. So you lower every time I extract a tooth. I always hold the tooth in the forceps in their face because the root is never straight unless it's, like a lower incisor. There's always some girl. I said, look at the hook on that thing. Mm-hmm. That thing was hooked up behind your cheekbone, under your eye. I swear to God, when this anesthetic wears off, I hope you're on the top of a tall building because you're probably going to want to dive off head first. And they're just like, whoa. So I lower the expectations so I'm always a hero. And they would tell me, they'd say, well, if I quit wearing my retainer, well, how long do I have to wear my retainer? And I say, well, until I shoot you. Because if I shoot you right now, they'll be straight the rest of your life. But if you're going to go on living and breathing and talking and having your tongue hit the lower teeth 3,000 times a day, every time you say a syllable, then you're going to have a bar. So my question to you is for the general dentist diagnosing and treatment planning. Some general dentists are saying, they're telling adults, well, do Invisalign because the last Invisalign tray is your permanent retainer, and if something shifts around, you get another Invisalign tray, where if you do fixed, you're going to really need to cement a lingual bar around the bottom inside of the lower 6 teeth. I hear that's what people are saying. What do you think of that advice from a general dentist?
So, well, the last Invisalign tray, which is made out of like this bilayer plastic, the Smart Trek plastic, it's certainly not going to hold up. You might get a month or two out of it. So if you're going to go with some kind of clear type retainer, you're probably better off to use something like Vivera, which the patient gets 4 sets of them because the plastic does fatigue. So I don't advocate using that last tray because it's in 2 months you're just kicking the can down the road and the patient's going to come back and say my tray broke. What am I supposed to do now? Having said that, fundamentally the teeth don't know the difference whether they're being pushed around with brackets and wires or whether they're being pushed around with clear aligners. So from a philosophical standpoint, the retention protocol should not be any different whether you're treating a patient with braces or whether you're treating a patient with Invisalign or clear aligners. So, and you have options. So, and I give the patient that option. They can get a fixed retainer, or they can get a removable retainer. Both have their pros and cons.
But that Vivera, that's an Invisalign though product.
Vivera is an Invisalign product. You would do a scan of the patient's teeth or order off the last stage, and they send you 4 sets of really nice, durable material that maybe each one can last anywhere between 1 year and 2 years, depending on how much the patient's bruxing. But at least that gives that patient some time, with the retainers. As far as a fixed retainer, listen, there's pros and cons to both. Fixed retainers are great until they break when you're on, in the Caribbean on vacation and you can't find an orthodontist. So your patients come in and they ask for a permanent retainer, and we never call it that because the adhesives fail and the wires eventually fatigue. Anytime you put a rigid element next to mobile teeth, something's going to break, and it's usually either the adhesive or the wire. So the fixed retainers, and then there's also the hygiene issues with flossing and calculus buildup and all that kind of stuff. So the fixed retainers have their pros and cons, and then the removable retainers are great until Fido eats it or Johnny loses it, and then that people say, "What retainer? Oh, you never give me a retainer."
Well, I need to go back to cleanup point because you said if their hygiene's not that great. I had Benjamin Burris on the show years ago, and he was my sister lives out in Fayetteville, Arkansas, and he's out there in Arkansas, and I think it's insane when they have to go to the orthodontist. He takes everything off, then they come to my office, we do the cleaning, then they got to go back to the orthodontist, and that's a doctor focus system. And Ben said, that's crazy. We're going to have our own hygienist. And he hired hygienists, and that's one-stop shop. I mean, and it's the business model. Look at implants. The number one implant business model is we're going to get the surgeon and the prosthodontist and the lab guy, and we're going to put them all in one room. And that's clear choice. And they're selling something like, it's crazy number of total arches a year. The fastest growing business model in in my backyard for your department is when a pediatric dentist and an orthodontist go in together. Because, you know, everybody, any mom who's got it together to take her kid to a pediatric dentist is going to ask, does little Johnny need braces? And she's right there. And Ben, I thought, absolutely. And I want to remind everybody, I want to remind us that I'm not here to be your friend. You know, when you go to your grandpa and he tells you, you know, going through life drunk is not a good idea, or what is that Dumb and Dumber movie where he says that going through life dumb, fat, and drunk? But I'm going to tell you the truth.
House, actually,
what was it? Animal House?
Yeah. Fat, drunk, and stupid is no way to go through life, son. It's something like that, right? The Dean Wormer.
Yeah. Yeah, I want that quote. Kyle, can you find me that quote and text it me? But anyway, I just want to remind you that you know I'm always going to call you on your shit, and the only reason dentists make the big bucks is because 100 years ago, 120 years ago, the new political party, the Democrats and the Republicans, who have been in control since the Civil War to this day, they got a lot of money from a lot of doctors, and in 1 year, they closed down 90% of all the med schools, dent schools, and licensed doctors, and set up 50 state boards, said, we are going to license a school, we're going to license a doctor, and we're going to get rid of all this crap. Okay, so that was good for quality control, and it got rid of all the competition, and that's why you make the big bucks. But in where there's poor people, like in Phoenix, Arizona, where like I'm across from Guadalupe Indian Reservation, 5,000 Yaqui Indians, 20,000 illegal. We're supposed to call them illegal Mexicans when we stole the land from them at gunpoint. And so if they're living on the land we stole at gunpoint, now they're an illegal. And every time, and there's not one dentist in that area, and every time a licensed dentist from Mexico or Molar City down in Yuma, which you cross the wall into Yuma, Arizona's Molar City, there's more dentists in that square mile density than any place in the world, and Americans are going down there to get cheaper dentistry. But when that Mexican dentist comes in Guadalupe and starts doing dentistry for the poor, and they charge like $20 a filling, the government will send a policeman to arrest him and kidnap him and put him in a cage and deport him. And so I, as a registered libertarian, I've never bought into the Democrat bullshit, binary star, highway to hell, race to the bottom. You know, one robbed the bank, one drove the getaway car, and neither of them impressed me on what made America great, which was 500 years of immigration. And the greatest minds voted with their feet, left wherever the hell they were, and came here. And I think that the dental licensure should say, oh, well, you are a licensed dentist. And my gosh, Barry Glaser, he went to these universities, he's certified, the school's certified, he's a licensed dentist in New York. Okay, that's great. But where did you go off saying that the unlicensed dentist who just moved here from Italy, who went to school, when I got to Arizona, World War II had just gotten out, and a lot of people got the hell out of Germany, especially the Jewish people. You go down to Australia, all the big labs, Ruthport Laboratory, these were all Jewish Germans that got the hell out. And this woman came here and came to the country from Mercedes-Benz to the land of Chrysler, and they didn't honor her dental diploma from Germany. Are you kidding me? There's one graduating class from a Jewish private school in Europe that was made everything possible for everything you buy at Best Buy. I mean, from Faraday to Marie Curie to Albert Einstein. I mean, Germany was the smartest country in the world, and they wouldn't honor her license. So she could only own a dental office. She couldn't work with her hands. And if you want to provide low-cost health care and medicine and dentistry, it ain't Medicaid. It's closing down those state boards. And then the lady I bought my McMansion from, American-born, got brain cancer, paid taxes, millionaire, an American pharmaceutical, made a drug for brain cancer, but she couldn't have it because it wasn't FDA approved. And she said, and she got lawyers like, can I get on the study? No. And the lawyer said, but they're selling it out on the corner in all of Scandinavia. So she had to sell her house to me and move to Copenhagen, Denmark, to get a drug made by an American company for an American with brain cancer. And when I told Senator McCain that, I said, you got Indian reservations, you make gambling illegal. Why don't you make an FDA free zone so she could have stayed here? And the way he laughed, he's like, and I thought, wow, the system must be so messed up and gross. I mean, to say something that obvious and get a, that'll never fly. It's like, that'll never fly. It's an American lady retired with brain cancer. You got a pharmaceutical making a drug, and she's got to go to Denmark to get it? That's a laugh? It's just sick. It's so sick. I'm a libertarian. The FDA, now see, that's great. If I got cancer, say I got prostate cancer, all men will get it if they live to be 100, right? It's like 95% of men will get it if they live to be 100. And they said to me, there's two drugs. This one's FDA approved, and this one's not. Well, I would try the FDA approved one first. But what's unacceptable to me and my 12-gauge shotgun is for a government mobster to say, well, due to the current system of bribery, you're not allowed to try that. In fact, we passed a law, they got to try it on mice for 5 years. It's like, dude, you got a living rat right here. I'm the human cockroach. I'm willing to do it. And they say no. I mean, they cross so many lines. I mean, governments cross so many lines for 5,000 years. I still find it just bizarre, especially young millennials. They're like, they're always running to the government to help them. It's like, dude, you should be running away from the government. They've caused every crime for the last 5,000 years, and you're running to them like their mom. They're not your mom. They're your killer. They're the mob. So we got on so many tangents. The question going back to the deal is, Benjamin Burris, I think he should have hygienist. I know he's got real controversial about a lot of other things, but back to that issue, do you think Ben Burris was right that orthodontists should have hygienists and screw the state boards?
Wow, I thought we weren't going to talk about religion and politics, but I don't know.
Did I bring up religion? We'll change the sex.
No, but it's because my son actually just graduated from the University of Pittsburgh with a degree in political science. So I learned a lot more about libertarianism and and things that honestly growing up in New York that I didn't really know all that much about. And there's. I don't know what the right answer is. I mean, I think every sort of viewpoint, in a political viewpoint in our country, you can make a compelling argument for all of them. Certainly out in your neck of the woods, I think that your type of viewpoint that the government is supposed to be for the people and not the other way around, carries a lot of weight. But it's in the time that we have, it's not so simple, Howard, and I think you know that too. We just get rid of government, get rid of all regulations, right? Let people do what they want.
Well, I don't want to get rid of government because I think it's simple geometry. I mean, I'm an individual of 8 billion organisms in this species. So there's a space at the top for organization. I mean, I just think there's macro effects and there's individual effects. And I think the individual and the macro should get along and negotiate and do everything they can.
You bet.
Stopping short of you kidnapping me, putting me in a cage, and killing me.
So
I mean, it's like
why
I don't do business with the mob. It's because if I do business with the mob
good to know.
and it doesn't work out right, they'll kill me. That's why I wouldn't go into drug dealing, because if I'm dealing with a guy that owns 8 subways and we get an argument, we'll work it out. Same thing with Delta. If I have a problem with Delta Dental, I mean, going all the way back to Ed Judd, the first director, to the guy right now, Alan Alliford, I mean, we meet, we're civil, we'll talk. There's never even been a lawsuit. But when a dentist, when my very good friend had the most adorable wife, Barbara, and she was in charge of the front office, and he didn't marry her for her data entry skills. She was gorgeous, and she screwed up all the Medicaid billing, and when Medicaid finally found out about it, they was charges. Anyway, he got the best attorney he could afford, and they said we could plea bargain you and get you out of prison in 5 years. It's like 5 years. So he had to sell his home and his practice and go spend the rest of his life in Mexico City. Why? Because he did business with the mob. You don't do business with Medicaid. you don't do business with Medicare. Because if something goes south, they will kidnap you, they will put you in a cage, and you may die. And in human history, 1% of the people are killed by their own family tribe, and 6% of the people are killed by the government overlords. The government overlords are murderers. I don't deal with them.
This conversation actually went on a lot at the beginning when the pandemic started to hit, and getting back to that, and then certain states were shutting down, and this tension between individual liberty, right, which is supposedly what our country is founded on, right, individual liberty, but on the other hand, that we have to have a functioning society. Now, listen, I'm no political scientist, but individual liberty, does it go as far as, does individual liberty mean I can do whatever the F I want whenever I can do it? And I think most people would agree. And in fact, there's Supreme Court decisions, and there's 200 years that say, okay, well, certainly, individual liberties have to be infringed on. Maybe that's not the right word. My son would laugh at me when we're, let's say, affecting someone else, right? So like, you can't kill another person. I think that we would all agree that freedom doesn't mean that you can take somebody else's life, or you can't take their land, right? I mean, that's a fundamental tenet of this country, that my land is my land. But that brings up an important point. And the important point is that we're not ever really truly free. And I think we have to understand that, because without any sort of structure in society can't function. It can't be everybody rowing the boat in a different direction and everybody doing all their own thing. And, it comes back to the mask thing when people say, you can't infringe on my civil liberties. And I don't think it's a question that anybody can answer, but you can make an argument that, but if you're sick and you sneeze on me and you get me sick, it's a much deeper question than that, and it's the same thing, with, could Ben Burris have, hygienists? Was the dental board right, and all that kind of stuff? And it's a very, very difficult answer, and people like to oversimplify it. People like to say, read the Constitution, read the First Amendment, read the Second Amendment, but they forget that there have been Supreme Court decisions that interpret those amendments, and that the Constitution was drafted as a living, breathing document. And I think the founding fathers understood that times change, and that's why we have the judiciary, correct?
And the other I agree with everything you're saying. And remember, kids, that almost every Supreme Court decision that was ever made was that was 5-4. So it means they were looking at the same Constitution and the same language and the same books and the same words, and 5 said yes and 4 said no. And so the devil's in the details. I agree with all that. It just comes down to, I just have one litmus point. If I disagree with you, are you going to kidnap me, put me in a cage, and kill me?
Personally, no. That wasn't on my agenda for today.
And when your
Tomorrow,
idea,
we'll see.
and when your idea is so good that no one will agree with you until you kidnap them, put them in a cage, and kill them, then you need killed. I mean, it's crazy. But we probably talked enough about the Ben Burris and the all that kind of stuff like that. This course is for orthodontists only.
Yes.
It's a 13-week. It starts again November
1st.
November 1st. And will this be starts the second round or the second series?
So this will be a completely new group. So the course will recycle. So basically, the first group will graduate, and this is a whole new class starting over from the beginning.
So it'll be the second class.
Second class, yeah.
And did the first class, when you did your first 13-week online class, did you get feedback you weren't expecting? Did you do a lot of changes for the second class? What did you learn from the first 13-week class of graduates that you're are going to change in the second 13-week?
It's a great question. I actually sent out a survey right at the beginning, sort of as a pre-test. How you used to get those pre-tests and they give you the same test later on to see how much you learned. So I sent out a survey at the beginning. Now, we're still ongoing. I have learned, certainly we have continued to adjust the curriculum. In fact, one of the doctors asked, I don't do any 3D in-house aligners. I get all my aligners from Align Technology. but one of the doctors had some questions about 3D printed aligners. So I spoke to a new friend of mine, Ruz Kazvani, who's the 3D printing Macha, an expert. So he's going to do a module on that. So as we're going through the course, we're getting an idea of, let's say, maybe some of the gaps that we've missed. So we're re-recording some of our modules for the next course. It went from 12 weeks to 13 weeks. Probably the next one will be 14 weeks as we keep finding that there's more things that people want to learn about. Gary and I tried to make it comprehensive. So we start the beginning, as you talked about. The first week is diagnosis and treatment planning. It's critical. And then we went through different malocclusions, and now kind of on the backside of the course, we're talking more about the business of orthodontics and how to be profitable. And we didn't even get a chance to talk about some of the teledentistry platforms. If you want to have me back on someday, we can talk about things like Invisalign virtual care and dental monitoring. But and I think probably by January it's going to be a different planet, and we'll probably have to retool the course all over again as the planet starts to spin in a different direction.
Your podcasts are huge now, and I'm a big fan of, I like your, if you go to alignerinsider.com/podcast, alignerinsider.com podcast. He's got 76 episodes, but do you know you can, anybody in dentistry can upload their podcast for free on Dental Town, Ortho Town, or Hygiene Town. If you just go to Ortho Town and you hit podcast, it says all podcast shows, and then it says created at my own. But I'm going to tell you this because I know podcasts. I mean, I'm pretty, I've been doing this for 4 years. Oh my gosh, there are dentists on Dental Town that 90% of America would never even heard of before that have hundreds of thousands of views from their podcasts on Dental Town. And so, man, I would upload your podcast, and then everybody that does it says that their podcasts explode on iTunes and Spotify because they heard it for 70,000 dentists have downloaded the Dental Town app and the Ortho Town app. And you put that up there, a lot of times people will just see it, and then they might subscribe to it. Like when I find someone else's podcast, I always check first if it's on YouTube. I don't know why. I don't know why 90% of YouTubers are boys and not girls, but girls go to Pinterest, girls go to Instagram and Snap, but boys go to YouTube. I don't know if we're just more visual or whatever, but I tell everybody in dentistry, if you got a podcast, put it up for free on Ortho Town, Dental Town, Hygiene Town, and go video. So you got that Mr. Clean look. You're charming, handsome. How come you're not on YouTube and you're audio only?
I don't know. You tell me.
Well, what we're doing with Zoom right now, we used to do with Skype. You know what I mean? What we're doing with Zoom, I mean, who's ever doing your audio could do it. But if you're trying to attract boys, boys are on YouTube, and I don't think I don't think Sergey Brin and Larry Page even know why.
You listen. I mean, you understand media a lot better than I do. A lot of this is still, as you can see. I think you can see from the things that I'm doing. So some of it hasn't really reached maturity yet. We're kind of still experimenting with some of this stuff. So I definitely appreciate the feedback, and will now lean on you heavily. You'll come to regret it.
Well, what I love about it is, it's just, my gosh, when I was in dental school, these real guys, we'd call them, they weren't the institutional inmates, it wasn't the warden and the deals of these real guys. I remember one guy came in from the Paul Permay, who was way out in Olathe, but they would come in and we would gravitate around them because they were from the outside. They were from over the wall, and they would tell us that you could do a denture in less than 20 appointments, and that you didn't have to use the rubber base. And I just think that that knowledge has no value unless it's transferable. And for guys like us who've been doing it for decades to be able to package up a conversation and give it to the kids for free while they're still in dental kindergarten school or they're out, and the love letters they send you, because other dentists, their dad was a dentist. They're in dental school, their mom was a dentist. Well, what if your mom's not a dentist? What if you're a dentist and your mom isn't? You need a neighbor. You need someone from the community. I think these are excellent formats. And then it puts things in perspective. Like, I bought the first 3 books written by G.V. Black. And I'm telling you, you don't realize how fast things are changing until you read G.V. Black talking about drilling holes into the jaw to let out the evil spirits, and then draws them. And isn't it funny how all the evil spirits look like court jesters from the king? I thought that was very, very interesting, the parallel. But it's a fast-changing move, and to get this on. So I got to tell you, you must have pretty ballsy to be able to be teaching ortho to orthodontists. I mean, teaching ortho to a bunch of general dentists, if you weren't that great, we wouldn't know it. But man, that's a whole nother level when you're teaching ortho.
That's a whole can of worms. But listen, I think that I'm pretty confident in what I do. I think my experience. Look, I've been teaching ever since dental school. I used to tutor kids in dental school. And then after I graduated from ortho school, I took a full-time academic position at Montefiore. So I've always been passionate about teaching. And I don't know, I consider myself hopefully I'm a reasonably humble guy. I happen to be a really good teacher. And then I was able to pick up a gig from Align Technology, as a faculty member. And I've traveled to 5 out of the 7 continents. I don't think I'll be teaching Invisalign in Antarctica, but I have a lot of experience. I mean, like anything else, Howard, you get good at it after a while. I wrote the book that I wrote in 2017 became a bestseller. My mom is also very proud of that. So I think that, and I have to tell you, I have to thank, there's a lot of people to thank, but no one more than Anthony Gianelli. He was my program chairman at BU. He passed away 10 years ago, but Dr. Gianelli was a giant, and I will never, ever be able to fill his shoes, but he was such a brilliant man, and he was able to make concepts so easy for us mere mortals to understand. And I've always tried to, strive to at least try to partially fill his shoes. But
wow.
I mean, I have no problem teaching orthodontists. I think that I'm not above them. I mean, I think I've always tried to be collaborative with them too, and I have an open mind, and it's always been a really great experience. It's never been a problem.
And we were talking about the Aligner Insider podcast. Is that for orthodontists only? Could general dentists listen to that?
No, anybody can listen to that.
And just to be clear again, I don't want to be a troublemaker,
or Spotify or any of the. I don't
want to be a troublemaker, but it could general dentists take your clear aligner course and all that, or is that really kind of be taboo?
So the clear aligner course is just for orthodontists. Now, there are a couple of places where you can collaborate. One of them is on our Facebook group, Aligner Insider Clinical Chat. It's a closed Facebook group that is orthos and GPs. I have, and I have taken crap for that too, but I feel like that is a good place maybe to try to reestablish a good collaborative relationship.
Aligner Insider Clinical Chat.
Yes.
One word or two?
2.
Okay. All right. And we'll, but let me ask this a different way. The use of teledentistry platforms such as dental monitoring, Invisalign virtual care, Invisalign virtual appointment, and Smile Snap. Which one of those are you using? And if you had 100 patients, how many of them would be using that format once or twice or all the time? Can you talk a little bit of that? Because I know Wall Street's freaked out about telemedicine, telehealth. I mean, they can't quit writing articles on it. They think it's going to change the world. And I have to tell you, it's pretty exciting when your 82-year-old mother doesn't have to get in the car and drive clear across Wichita to go talk to a doctor for 10 minutes. And he calls her on her iPad. And it's just great, because I think my mom has a higher chance of dying driving clear across Wichita, Kansas. I don't know if you've ever been there, but it's batshit crazy. It's like a F-150, NASCAR race, to stay home. I mean,
So dental. Let's start with dental monitoring. So first of all, I think that you can use technology for the forces of good or for the forces of evil. You can use it to push your patients out the door, or you can use it to be a better doctor. And that's how I choose to use it. So dental monitoring is a platform that uses a patient's smartphone. Every week, they do a series that's called the dental monitoring scan using their smartphone. and there's artificial intelligence that can look at 175 different parameters. I'm essentially using this for Invisalign, but you can also use it for patients with fixed appliances. But let's just talk about Invisalign. It can see hygiene, it can see recession, it can see tooth movement, it can see if a tooth hasn't completed its movement. And a lot of this is an automated process. So patients weekly, I'm essentially doing a weekly remote house call on my patients. So I'm seeing their teeth, me and my staff and my dental monitoring coordinator, Marisol. We're seeing these patients on a weekly basis. Now, if everything's humming along, if their aligners fit fine, if their hygiene's fine, if everything's fine, typically I don't even know about it because my dental monitoring coordinator knows that there's nothing, that they're doing fine. But we now see patients, our Invisalign patients, on demand. So Howard, let's say your case is 30 aligners and you're compliant, you wear your aligners, you use your chewies. Not that adults do that, but just theoretically, someday I'll have an adult who actually follows instructions. But let's say that's you and your treatment is coming along beautifully. You won't need to come to my office for 30 weeks, even though I'm seeing you every week. Especially in a pandemic, patients really appreciate that. But even if it's not a pandemic, a good chunk of my patients are teenagers and they're busy and the moms are busy. And, we have 2-income families in this area and hopefully they love the orthodontist, but they've got better things to do. So we can use this technology to monitor their treatment to make sure that they stay on track, to give them notifications automatically if there's plaque or gingival inflammation. I mean, the list goes on and on. But I see the patients when I need to, if they need IPR, if they need an attachment, if their treatment's gone off the rails, that kind of stuff. The interesting thing about it, though, is it's like Weight Watchers. There's a reason why Weight Watchers makes you get on the scale every week. And the reason why is that their clients are more successful with their weight loss because they're accountable. So orthodontics, we're in any dentistry, we're in the accountability business where we're asking our patients to be compliant, following our instructions. So using telemedicine, teledentistry platforms like this helps to keep patients accountable and you get better results faster. It's pretty amazing.
Well, I just want to say one thing about Weight Watchers. I can save you a lot of time on that bullshit. What you do is you put the scale on your bed, and then you get up on your bed and you stand on the scale, and you'll lose at least 20, 30 pounds. If you go to the moon, you'll weigh 40% less. But don't ever put that scale on a really hard surface, or it's not doing its job.
Now you tell me.
So you're talking, was all of that, what you were saying, was that more dental monitoring?
That's all dental monitoring. That's all DM.
That's all dental monitoring, which is out of Paris, France. That's Philip Salah.
Yep.
Have you met Philip?
I have. He's a brilliant man. He's an engineer by original training. He's a brilliant man. And yeah, we've actually met several times, done some work together.
Well, I would love to have. I think the follow up to you would be Gary Brigham, who does a lot of teaching with him, and Philip Saul. So tell them both that first
I will make that happen.
Yeah. Tell them both because everybody wants to know, and like say what I'm most what I'm really wanting to know is I know what we're all doing during a pandemic. But what is going to change that won't go? And a lot of it has to do with momentum. I mean, you need to know your vectors. And working from home has been going on for 10 or 20 years. And I remember I'm lucky. I fought that here. But my team, you can't keep a bunch of people 20, 30 years by telling them no. And Lori and Stacy and Ken and Hogo and so many people wanted to work from home. So when the pandemic came, we were all ready to go. And now, when everybody had to work from home, now I'd say 80% in the media company, Dental Town, Orthotown, Hygiene, they don't want to come back. Now, at today's dental, it's retail, you have to come back. But we were talking about dental monitoring. So all that was talking about dental monitoring, which I'd love to get that guy on the show because on Dental Town, every third thread's about teledentistry. When you turn on Kramer on NBC, it's always telehealth, teledentistry, all that kind of stuff. But I figured a big guy like you with Joe Hogan, Invisalign, they have Invisalign Virtual Care, Invisalign Virtual Appointment, and Smile Snap. Are they not, do you like dental monitoring out of France better than the 3 Invisalign stuff?
All right, so look, I'm an aligned faculty member, and by the way, I'm a KOL. This is disclosure. I'm not getting, I'm not being compensated for this, but I am a KOL for dental monitoring, and I'm a KOL for aligned technology. So having said that, the views and opinions that I'm expressing are my own. But so I just want to get that out of the way for the audience to know. Having said that, Align has their own products that have just really launched recently. So that's Invisalign Virtual Care. And we have patients. I was the first, I'm going to brag. I was the first orthodontist on the planet to have Invisalign Virtual Care. Came out in February. We were going to beta test it. And then COVID-19 hit. And Align decided to release it, even though it's sort of in its infancy, to all its doctors, because it is a conduit where you can stay in contact with your patients. So Invisalign Virtual Care is another teledentistry platform that allows you to monitor your Invisalign patients. It's an Invisalign, obviously, proprietary thing that allows you to monitor your Invisalign patients. It doesn't have the AI and some of the bells and whistles that the dental monitoring has. Over time, I'm sure it will become more and more mature. But for those doctors who maybe want to dip their toe in the water, it's right on your Invisalign doctor site. There's no cost for it, so you can start to sign your patients up onto that. They use an app, the My Invisalign app, on their phone, and it's a similar sort of method. It's more, it's not automated, but it's another method where you can communicate with your patients. You can see images of their teeth and their aligners, and you keep them appraised of their progress and let them know how they're doing. And also with Invisalign Virtual Appointment, where essentially you are using Align Technologies' Zoom account, which is HIPAA compliant, and you can then, right from that virtual care app, you can set video conferences up with your patient. So let's say a patient has a question, tooth's not tracking, you can go right in there, you can schedule the appointment right from the app, and set up the patient just like we're doing with the Zoom appointment, which for certain things is appropriate and for certain things is not appropriate. And the reason I bring this up is I know there's going to be doctors listening to this and say, he's just as bad as the direct-to-consumer orthodontic companies. And my answer to that is what I think I'm doing is the exact opposite. This is more of me, not less of me. I mean, if you and I are talking, you're in Phoenix and I'm in Westchester, but yet we're still sharing ideas and we're still communicating. And I didn't have to get on a plane and go to Phoenix. So you can use technology to, like I said before, for better dentistry, or you can use technology to try to take advantage, I suppose. So all the things that I do, I think this gives me more touch points with my patients, but more just in a virtual way. It's not, let's talk about SmileSnap. So if you go to my website, which is glazerortho.com, a little box, a little widget will pop up at the bottom, and it will say, welcome to Glaser Orthodontics. Would you like to do a virtual consultation? The patients answer a couple of questions and using their phone, upload a series of photos. And now, can I diagnose periodontal disease or caries? Of course not.
And that on your website, that is dental monitored, that snippet, you call it a widget or a snippet?
It's a widget. So if you go to glazerortho.com.
Yeah, I'm on it. Glazerorthodontics.com.
Either way.
Oh, you have Glaser
either way
Ortho?
we'll get you to this. Either way, we'll get you to the same place.
Okay.
And then you should see in the bottom right-hand corner a little box that pops up. That's SmileSnap. That's not dental monitoring. This is a different company.
Oh, that's a third company.
This is SmileSnap.
Okay, I don't know why I thought SmileSnap was owned by Invisalign.
No, SmileSnap is I don't know who the parent company is, but they're the SmileSnap people, the good people at SmileSnap. So that's a separate standalone thing. You pay a fee. It's a subscription fee. It's like $199 a month, but you get that widget. And the widget pops up, and you can, if you want to do it, you can answer questions, and then you can upload some photos with your phone. Now, again, it's not the replacement of a full suite of orthodontic records, which is a Ceph, Pan, montage of photos, and these days an iTero scan. So it doesn't replace that, but it's a touch point. It's a way of attracting consumers to my office that I want to make into patients. So far, we probably have had, 50, 60 patients that have interacted with this. And I was just checked today, I think we've had like 12 or 13 starts. So it's not a great conversion rate, but it's 13 starts. That revenue, we're probably talking about $60,000, $70,000 in revenue. That's not too shabby.
And what's
for $199 a month?
What is that revenue model when you look at the value of an orthodontic patient? How do you do the math on valuing that? Is it 6,000, 7,000,
So the
8?
average, like if you take everybody in my practice and you average it out, the case fee is going to be about 6,000. Now I'm in Westchester. It's like Scottsdale. It's not. It's an expensive area to practice, and the case fees tend to be higher. But my fees vary. One thing that I'm doing differently than what I learned, in ortho school was like, my way or the highway. It's either you're going to get a class 1 perfect occlusion, or I can't help you. Now we have patients. We have this program that we call Fix My Smile. It's $39.99. It's typically for adults, almost always for adults, where let's say maybe they've got a skeletal class 2 and they don't want orthodontic surgery. Right? And my mom wants to get her teeth straightened for her daughter's wedding, and we do a shorter. Maybe we'd use like an Invisalign Express product, or moderate product. We use one of the other lower stage products with Invisalign, and we treat them in, let's say, 6 months. And I'm perfectly fine with that. I mean, and every orthodontist has to make that decision for themselves. But I learned, above all else, do no harm. So if the patient, let's say, has a functional malocclusion and I'm giving them a cosmetic improvement, I'm not hurting them, I'm okay with that. So our fees range based on what you need. So a full case fee, like a surgical case, would be $7,500, all the way down to, let's say, $39.99 for more of those sort of social 6 type treatments.
And what is wrong with parents? Like when people tell me, they go, do you think my daughter needs braces? And I'm like, dude, your daughter's beautiful. I'd ugly her up. I'd pull all of her teeth. You'll never have to worry about her getting married. She'll never, just think of all the money you would save her if you uglied her up. And then all the parents' best idea is to make her look as pretty as a peacock. And I'm like, I don't think you understand how this game works. But I want to start with the first thing we started on. I know on OrthoTown, I can't read OrthoTown. I own the site, but I'm not an orthodontist. But I know in the past you talked about ortho marketing. We started this show, and that's how I want to end it. Again, some people, they're young and they're scared. They're like, I don't know if I should be trying to market getting humans in to come in, and they should stay home. So some kids believe that the school should be open. Some people believe they should be shut, and I get that. Two adults can completely disagree, and I love those. My God, in college at Creighton, to argue till 3 o'clock in the morning about politics and religion, I love it, but it never broke out into a kidnapping, a fight, and a murder. By the way, I was podcasting the only dentist in Antarctica, and he said the Russians had to ban the game of chess because it's so dark and so brutal. And that 2 Russians were playing a chess game, and the guy that lost killed the other guy. And stranger things happen. But
wow.
What's the ethics of reaching out to someone like, say, Dean Steinman of Ortho Marketing in the middle of a pandemic? Would you say that's good or tasteless?
Personally, I think it's good, but I will preface that with, it is an individual choice. So this is just according to me. I'm not here to tell anybody what to do. So I could certainly, I can appreciate the other viewpoint for sure. As far as I'm concerned, I feel like the protocols that we have set up in our office make it appropriate for us to see patients in the office and treat them. We do everything we can to follow all the rules. We honor social distancing. We limit the number of, we only have 2 of our 4 chairs operating. Parents can't come in. So we're doing everything that I think that all the letters, the OSHA, CDC, FDA, all not FDA, but you know what I mean, ADA, the AAO, they're all recommending all these things. We're trying to follow all of them to the best of our ability. And I'm personally comfortable, coming into the practice every day and working. So from that standpoint, I think someone like Dean, now I've worked with Dean for a long time. Dean his company does my website, all my social media marketing, Facebook, Instagram, all that kind of stuff.
Was he the one that conceptually gave you the Mr. Clean look?
Well, I'll tell you, he's not as good looking as me, but he's not bad looking. He's a handsome man,
But was it his idea that you look like Mr. Clean?
I would, it's funny. I thought you were going to go for the Walter White thing. That's usually what I get, the Breaking Bad thing. But
that's right. I didn't even think of that.
But
I'm giving away my.
Clean.
I'm giving away my
I have
age.
to work on my biceps a little bit, but anyway. So Dean, he happens to be another bald Jewish guy like me. I mean, we become a dime a dozen. But his company, look, I still have a lot of GPs that I have great relationships with that refer me patients, and I'm very appreciative of that. So I want to just go back and circle back to that a little bit. But having said that, last year, my number two best referrer was internet. So that means that my marketing efforts going directly to the public is my second best referrer to the practice. So if you're an orthodontist and you want to be in business and it's certainly not a sin, I think, to make a living, and you feel that that's something that you want to do in this time, you have to market. Nike, they've said this many times. They're not a sneaker company, they're a marketing company. And you could be, this. I mean, we learned this back in dental school. You could be the best dentist in the world, but if nobody knows you're around, you ain't going to be helping people. So if you want to help patients and do the kind of orthodontics, that I want to do, these days it's through this. It's through Instagram and Facebook, and Google AdWords and retargeting and all that kind of stuff. And it's been, the stuff that Dean's company, orthomarketing.com, does has been wildly successful. And people don't want to spend the money. I mean, it's an investment. I probably invest 5% of my annual revenue towards marketing. It probably should increase that. But, people say, oh, you got to spend $30,000, $40,000, $50,000 on marketing. But let me ask you something, Howard. If I was your financial planner and you give me $50,000 and I gave you back $500,000, would you be happy or sad?
Yeah, you'd be really happy. And if you go on Shark Tank, the first thing they're going to ask you is, what is your new customer acquisition cost? And then how much net profit you make on that. And once you make $50 on a customer that costs you $100 to acquire, you're gone. And when I go to a dentist, I say, how much is your new customer acquisition cost? I'm like, oh, don't call them a customer. That's rude. They're a patient. Oh, shut up. You know where that word patient comes from? Be patient in the waiting room while you wait, because the doctor doesn't have his shit together and he doesn't have any logistics and he's running late, you moron. I'd rather be called a customer than intentionally be patient and have to wait in the waiting room. But if you don't know your new customer cost, and by the way, I want to tell you this is something that in your neck of the woods, Wall Street masters, and they got rid of Orthodontic Centers of America. Remember when Lazara did the Orthodontic Centers of America, and that was a disaster. And but the bottom line is this: the dentists don't know their acquisition costs, and Wall Street does. So really smart dentists and orthodontists will look over and say, wow, this dentist over here is selling his practice and he's got 1,000 patients and he's only asking $200 a piece, and my acquisition cost is $250 a piece. So I'm going to, we're in a town of 5 dentists, so instead of letting that old man retire and be replaced with some young, energetic guy filled with piss and vinegar ready to work 7 days a week, why don't I just buy that out? I can buy it cheaper than my marketing, then he'll third-person endorse me and say, I could have sold this to anybody, but I wanted Dr. Good to have it.
That's exactly what I did. Exactly what I did. I bought a little satellite office. The guy in this office, Dr. Mills, wonderful guy, we merged, and it was a match made in heaven.
Mergers and acquisitions are the way to go, but if you don't know your acquisition costs. So, and by the way, orthodontists, they spend more money in marketing. They always have, because they're just smarter, and they're getting a case for $65, and dentists like, yeah, but they're getting a $6,500 case. Yeah, they'll realize that revenue in just 24 months, but you get the same amount of money. It just materializes over 5 years. That's the other reason I don't think general dentists should do ortho, just because I'd rather go get the root canal, billet, and crown $2,500 today. I can get $2,500 right now. So so if I do 3 of those in one day, that's $7,500, and I don't have to date you for 2 years. So the bottom line is, so my final question. I know you got to go. You're a busy man. Dentists fail routinely because they get out of school and they just treat the one tooth. And it takes them 5 or 10 years to get to the quadrant. And then maybe if you're lucky, they'll get to half side. And I'll say, well, why don't you numb up the whole mouth and do it all at once? Oh, you could never do that. And they practice next door to an oral surgeon who numbs up all 4 quadrants and pulls all 4 wisdom teeth 8 times a day, 5 days a week for 40 years. And they just don't know how to present. And you're an orthodontist. Some people say that orthodontists are like endodontists. Like, I know I got a toothache. I called you. You didn't call me. Can you fix it? I know my teeth look like I can eat corn on the cob through a chain link fence. I'm not stupid. Can you straighten them? Do you consider orthodontists like endodontists, where you don't have to sell anything and you don't know how to sell and you don't have any treatment plan presentation skills because your customer already knows they're going to buy or not? Or do you see amongst the 10,800 orthodontists that I mail OrthoTown to every month, do they need to get good on treatment plan presentation, or is it a gimme?
No, I don't think it's a gimmick at all. I mean, look, good communication, a good doctor-patient relationship starts with good communication. So, I mean, the list of reasons why you should learn how to talk to your patients and listen to your patients goes on and on and on. Not least of which is that there tends to be less conflict, less lawsuits, all that kind of stuff. I mean, but having said that, look, Howard, I'm going to answer the question in a second, but first of all, it's not that hard. And it's just golden rule. I don't know why people forget the golden rule, because you have people that want to sort of crank it out dentistry or crank it out orthodontics, but then they go to the hotel and they're complaining about every little thing. I mean, if you expect good service, I think, as a customer, I think you should be able to deliver good service as a provider. So I think that communication skills are maybe the most important thing. Maybe after a while, you kind of get good with your hands, right? You know how to do dentistry. You probably don't sweat the cases anymore, but what you sweat is the other stuff, the unhappy patients, the miscommunications, the misunderstandings. The more you can minimize that, the happier patients you're going to have, the better reviews you're going to get. So having said that, no, I don't think ortho sells itself. In Westchester County, there's over 200 orthodontists, so right around me, there's probably 15. So if my case presentation, and you can call it selling, you can call it whatever you want. I mean, I think I look at it more as communication and collaboration, but my case presentation skills aren't good. There's a million other really good orthodontists in my area. I happen to say I'm very fortunate that got a bunch of nice practitioners who do good work. But having said that, it makes the competition, even greater. So I have to be on my game, and I have to make sure that I'm explaining just the way I'm talking to you is the way I talk to my patients. So I think that it is imperative for you to not assume that people are just going to walk in and open up their wallets and say, fix my teeth, doc. I mean, don't you think?
Well, if you open up your wallet, that's how you meet your wife. I mean, you know she's alive till you open your wallet. Hey, I just want to tell you that last month, August 4th, was a 30-year anniversary of my lecture. My first lecture I gave in New York City. Grew up in Wichita, Kansas, went to Creighton, Omaha Dental School, and I always wanted to see the Big Apple. And me starting to lecture, the driving point of that is me and my buddy from dental school, Craig Sykin, who's in Albuquerque. We just wanted to go see New York City. And it was kind of this crazy deal that I was going to go lecture. And my God, I'll never forget it. And everybody told me, well, don't go to New York. Those are the meanest, rudest, shrewdest people. You should go to some hillbilly town in the middle of Kansas or Nebraska or Texas. Now we want to go to New York. And it was like 20 guys who would have been as old as us. And I was like 27 and didn't know. Oh, my God. They were coaching me all through the lecture. They were giving me tips on my presentation. It was the most fun I ever had 30 years ago, August 4th, 1990. To show you how dumb I was, when I got to the airport, I got in the taxi, and the guy looks at me and goes, where are we going? I said, to the Sheridan. And he looked back at me and goes, there's a couple hundred Sheridans. I'm like, there is? And then I had to go find a payphone with a quarter and a dime to find out which damn Sheridan it was. Wasn't even smart enough to know. But, hey, man, Barry, Jay, Glaser, DMD, thank you for all that you've done for OrthoTown. Thank you for all that you do for dentistry and orthodontics. It was just an honor for you to come on the show today. Thank you so much.
It's been a real treat. Thanks for having me.
All right. Have a great day, buddy.